I want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for coming to the podcast and just listening to every episode, and for following me on social media, for reading my blog posts and my newsletters, and for your feedback. Now, some of you have even gone as far as written reviews about the podcast. And you have no idea how grateful I am for that, because I know that your time is valuable. I know that you have a lot of things going on, and that sometimes it can be tedious to do something like write a review, because you got to figure out where to go, how to do it, and all that stuff, right? But if you have done it, I just want to let you know that I really, really appreciate you, and it means the world to me that you have done that for me. And really, you're not doing it just for me. You do it for other people who might be looking for the content that I put out. It really helps people understand what this podcast is about and what to expect from it. And when I originally created the podcast, I really wasn't sure how to, like what angle to take on it, because I wanted to educate people on bullying awareness and prevention, because that's my main thing, right? But I also know that parents need a lot more information than just, about bullying and stuff like that. So I always look for experts who can deliver something of value to you, and also experts that can deliver information that we really don't think about. Like, for example, when we had our speaker talk about driving and teens, and how so many teens are dying because of drag racing and stuff like that, or like our recent guest speaker, Mara and Ana Maria, who talk about, hey, there are other avenues aside from college. There's other options available, and it's okay. And we've had Teo, the actor from Promised Land, and we talked about his experience, and, coming out, and the type of support that he received, and, just random things that we sometimes know we have to talk about, but we don't, because, life happens, or sometimes we just don't feel comfortable having that conversation with somebody at home or with a friend, because you're afraid that they might not agree with you, or you might feel insecure about, your thoughts on that topic. So that's why I've had so many different speakers. And some people might come onto my podcast and say, well, this is so disorganized. Like, she doesn't even have a niche. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. I'm just doing the best that I can. And I'm a learner of many, many things that I might even not need ever, but I like to learn about that type of stuff. Like, one of the things that I want to bring on this coming year in 2023 is an expert on divorce, because I know that the majority of my listeners are parents who are going through a divorce, or who have been, through a divorce already and are still struggling, and have, children that might be struggling. And, that's something valuable. And it can also give you, as a non-divorcee, insights on even like some insensitive things that we might say, unwantedly, that are hurtful. We as parents deal with so much. So the more information I can put out, just to get your, little tuerquitas, your gears turning in your head, and so that you can have these conversations at home or with friends, because the more knowledge we have, the better options we can choose for ourselves, the more we can, help others and our own children. So one of the things that I want to do before the year wraps up is to do a end of year review. Now, I know that a lot of people, they hate that term, and they're like, oh, what do I want to do that for? But hear me out. I was listening to Rachel Hollis years ago, and she talked about how she does her end of year review, and I loved it. So I want to kind of give you a little summary of what she does. And I found it to be very effective because I've been practicing it since, with a little twist of my own. So she, what she does is that she'll open up her calendar, whether it's on paper or a digital one or both. And she goes through and she looks at all of her appointments. So let's say she was looking at her business calendar, and she was looking at all of the people that she had on her podcast and all of the meetings that she had and all of the, say, like events that she went to. She will then assess and rate them, right? Whether this person was worth having in her business, collaborating with or not. And if they were not so good, if maybe she had a really annoying or very difficult client, then she'll like vow to not work with that client again, right? Or if she had a guest speaker that just didn't jive with her vibe, then that's a guest speaker that she will most likely not invite back. Or maybe that person was just pretty much a learning lesson, to like look out for certain things that, might make that conversation on the podcast difficult, or just maybe that person was hard to work with. Maybe it was hard to schedule them in and make the podcast recording happen. So I was thinking about how she does this, right? This assessment. And I thought, okay, well, let's apply that to our personal lives. So that's one thing that I've been doing. Like, who did I have in my life that added strengths and good energy to me? And who did I hang out with more than I thought I would? And who do I want to hang out with more this coming year? Who do I want near me? And what type of activities did I engage in that really brought happiness and satisfaction to me? Whether it was my mommy and daughter dates with my two kids, which I absolutely loved, and I'll be continuing that again, or whether it was like date night, or maybe it was like that getaway that I had with my sister-in-law that was amazing, so things like that. And I'm like, okay, now I see what I loved about it. Now, for 2023, where do I want to schedule these in? Where do I want to go for that getaway? And do I want to go with somebody else? Aside from my sister-in-law, do I want to go just with my sister-in-law, or do I want to invite more people? Or maybe I should just, do a whole different one with somebody totally different. So I invite you to do that type of end of year review and look at, the people that drained you, the people that gave you energy, the events that you went to that were very helpful, the collaborations, whether they were personal or professional. And like, how did you challenge yourself, right? I know that you might not have that listed somewhere on your calendar, but as you're going through the calendar, you might think about, oh man, that event, that was actually hard, and I went to it, and you know what? It did challenge me. This is what I learned from it, whether you want to admit it or not, right? So that's how I'd like to invite you to do your assessment and your end of year review. And I want to invite you to do this with your children, because what I always say, if we teach our children at an early age on how to do certain things, and you build those habits. Like Julie said, one of our guests on the podcast, she said that we can start building those tiny habits from an early age. And she's absolutely right. And if you want to go back to that podcast episode and listen to it, because it was great how she talks about, the triggers and then the actions and everything. So think about that, when you're going through this assessment, this end of year review. And, don't just write, I want to lose 20 pounds, or like, I'm going to start training for a marathon. Just go through that list and say, hey, I went to these type of events and I want to go to more of those. Where can I find them? And where can I plug them in throughout the year? And do I want to do that once a month, once a quarter, maybe just twice a year, or maybe just once a year? And who do I want to come along with me? There's a lot of things that go on throughout the year that we forget about. And that's why opening up that calendar, whether it's on paper or whether it's on your phone, it's important to look at it because we forget so much. Like, I'd forgotten that I had Destiny Clark on the podcast, and her podcast was definitely one of my favorite ones because we talked about the LGBTQ plus community. And then we had, like just so many different speakers that taught me so much. And as I look back at my list, I was like, hey, I want to bring her back. I want to bring this person back. This other person was really fun to have a conversation with. It felt so easy, So the other thing I want you to think about is, how was your mental health? Like, do you see somewhere in your calendar where you did more because you were doing better, with your mental health? Or are there episodes, where you weren't doing so great and it reflects on your calendar? Like, maybe there's a lot less events, or maybe you just didn't have a great experience having conversations with somebody that you were supposed to meet up with because your mindset was just not there, so when you see that challenge, present itself throughout your assessment, as you're looking at your calendar, plan on how can you overcome that this coming year. What can you do? Because one of the things that I learned was I had every Friday off, supposedly. That was supposed to be my day off. And it was a day where I actually didn't have to get up as early. And then I started looking, and it was jam-packed with stuff because it was like my quote unquote day off. So I was like, ooh, so I can do this and this and this. And yeah, I can schedule this person there. Oh yeah, that I opened that whole day up for this. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that was horrible. I actually got so overwhelmed that I was cringing every time Friday came, because that was my day off. And then I realized, okay, I switched it to a Monday. That Mondays is when I'm going to schedule it, and that did not work. So that allows me now to plan to book recordings and appointments and things like that only Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Some people might think, okay, that's insane. That's only 3 days out of the week. But you know what? That's good. That is going to work for me, because Mondays are days where sometimes I just want to sleep in, take it easy because it's Monday. And sometimes it's just one of those days where I feel like super energized and I just want to keep it to myself to like do really good planning and journaling and, writing out plans or content. And Fridays are days when, you're looking forward to the weekend, and I don't ever plan any business stuff on the weekends. So I realized sometimes I start my weekend on Fridays. So let's not book anything else on Fridays. That's just insane. Why did I do that? And again, it might work for some of you, it might not, but just look at how you laid out your schedule, because sometimes we don't realize why we're overwhelmed. And then when you start, closely looking at what has happened, then you find the root of that problem, like why you felt overwhelmed or stressed out, or why you felt like you just couldn't breathe, right? You were going from one thing right to the next. And when you are looking at all of these things, make sure to include, make a list if you have to. Okay, what stressed you out? What gave you a lot of energy? Who did you really enjoy yourself with? Who made you just want to run away and hide from? What type of events did you truly enjoy? What do you wish you did more of? What type of adventures do you want to go on this coming year? Who do you want to have a closer relationship with? And, like, how do you want to challenge yourself? What goals do you have? And remember, you should really have just one main big goal for the entire year. Just one, right? And you might think, oh, well, it's not big enough. Okay, well, let's just go with it anyway, because you know what? If you achieve that goal, that big goal, and you think it's not big enough, well, then you're going to have more time for whatever the next goal is. So just don't overwhelm yourself. And remember that when you're creating this plan for this goal, that you're writing out like the micro tasks to get to that big vision, right? So that's something that I didn't do for many, many years. And now I have my goal. Like, for example, I want to go ahead and schedule like 4 or 5 podcasts that are edited already ahead of time. So in order to do that, I'm going to have my VA do X, Y, and Z. And then by this time, like the next month, we're going to have, like all the graphics and stuff done for the rest of the videos that are not yet edited, but we already have them, recordings, but we already have the recordings done or something like that. I'm just playing around with ideas, giving you ideas of where I'm going to be going with this. I have to still like refine it, but those are the things that I think are going to help us succeed and feel less stressed out and be able to enjoy our life and have more time for personal things. So I hope that this helps. I hope that it resonates in some way. And I hope that it makes you feel very excited to do this, especially as a family, because it's just fun to share it's pretty much dreaming, right? You're dreaming and you're putting it on paper, and that studies show that when you write something down, you're more likely to make it happen. And the study about that was back in the 70s, and it still is true. They keep repeating the study, and it still shows that when you write down a goal, and the more specific you get with a goal, the more likely you are to hit it. So I've been going on and on and on about this. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to end it there. And I want to ask you one thing. Will you please comment below about what is your hesitation to take on this challenge? Because I know a lot of you are like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. But tell me why. What is it in you that makes you cringe or makes you say, oh my gosh, I just can't do that. I can't do an end of year review. Let me know in the comments, and maybe, I'll have some good suggestions there for you if you want them. And if you don't want suggestions, just go ahead and say like, this is my hesitation, but I don't need any suggestions. Thanks. So thank you so much for listening once again. I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful end of 2022, and that you are ready with a positive mindset for 2023. All right. Until next time.
Hey, did you like that episode? If you did, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you may be listening and write a review. If you want more tips or some behind-the-scenes videos, make sure to follow my mom at DaliTalks on Instagram. You can turn on notifications for her posts and stories as well. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. See you next time.